can't be too safe. Bring it on.
Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous.
Just get on with it.
Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel. Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, it's Work Shy Wednesday as the country is shut down and more than half of schools are closed because of strikes. In my latest digest, I'll rail against the selfish and irresponsible unions treating our children's precious education as a political football, and I'll get the thoughts of my superstar panel too. Joining me tonight, Dawn Neeson, Adam Brooks and Ashley James. Then there's no one better place to give us a lesson on the devastating effect walkouts will have on students already scarred by lockdown. Britain's strictest head teacher, Catherine Burblesing, joins me live in the studio for an exclusive interview at 10:15. Also coming up, as rumours swirl that scheming Sturgeon could quit over the trans storm sparked by her sick gender bill, has woke madness finally finished off Scotland's turf minister? One of the nation's favourite entertainers, Jim Davidson, says she's lost the plot. He's live at 10:40. There's trans trouble for Labour too, after Rosie Duffield compared fighting for women's rights in her party to being in an abusive relationship. Today, Rishi Sunak took slippery Starmer to task over his party's woman problem.
He can't be trusted to stand up for the women in his party. He can't be trusted to stand up for Britain.
So is the PM right that we can't trust Starmer to protect Britain's women? That's our big debate at 10. Elsewhere on the show, was the Queen right that Prince Andrew could be rehabilitated by taking on a life of charity work? Petronella Wyatt takes on the Duke's ex-girlfriend and biggest supporter, Lady Victoria Harvey, in an unmissable clash at 9:20. Plus, as Harry and Meghan are notably absent from Oprah's star-studded birthday bash, are they now even too toxic for their Hollywood former pals? Our very own Nana Acquair weighs in at 9:50. And at 9:35, don't miss the latest edition of The Real World with Lee Anderson, as Westminster's toughest talking MP reveals all about his trip to the Calais migrant camps and fires a warning to Sunak about his plans to tackle the Channel crisis. Plus, Australia's foreign minister and wokest politician is certainly making waves during her first visit on our shores with this Britain-hating speech.
Understanding the past enables us to better share the present and the future. It gives us the opportunity to find more common ground than if we stay sheltered in narrower versions of our country's histories.
She can rack off. Back to Australia as far as I'm concerned, but I'll ask my panel if we should confront our colonial past in the media buzz at 10:30. Tomorrow's newspaper front pages too, and a new Greatest Britain Union jackass on the way. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. Great to have your company tonight. I hope these strikes didn't mess up your plans too significantly. My special digest on Walkout Wednesday in just one moment. First, though, the news headlines at 9. This is everything you need to know with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. Good evening to you. Well, as you've been hearing, hundreds of thousands of workers have taken part in so-called Walkout Wednesday today, the UK's biggest day of industrial action in more than a decade. Up to 500,000 people across 7 trade unions went on strike over pay, jobs and conditions. Teachers took part in the action, along with Border Force officials and bus and train drivers, causing widespread travel disruption. The Education Minister, Nick Gibb, described the strikes as disappointing.
The EU, one of those 4 unions, has taken strike action today, jeopardising children's education. They've already suffered 2 years of interruption during the COVID pandemic, so this is the last thing children need, and it's the last thing parents need. So I say, look, let's talk, let's continue those talks about these important issues.
Well, also in the news today, neighbours in Milton Keynes have been holding a vigil tonight for a 4-year-old girl who was killed by the family pet dog. Thames Valley Police say Alice Stones was attacked in her own back garden yesterday. They described it as a tragic and isolated incident and that the animal had been put down at the scene by officers. No arrests were made. Now, in news away from home, the FBI search for classified documents at President Joe Biden's beach house in Delaware has ended. His lawyers say agents didn't find any files with classified markings. The operation was part of an ongoing investigation into Biden's handling of classified documents. The FBI found some at his other homes in Delaware last month, and his former private office was also searched in November. And Boris Johnson has been in the United States today, in Washington, urging Western leaders to further boost their support for Ukraine. Speaking, he told senior politicians that President Volodymyr Zelensky should be given all the equipment he needs to win the war against Russia. He asked them to supply fighter jets, which Downing Street has so far ruled out.
So God bless America for having the guts and the wisdom to help. And I implore you now to follow the logic of what you are all doing and give the Ukrainians the tools to finish the job. Give them the deep fire artillery systems, give them the tanks, give them the planes, because they have a plan. They know what they need to do, and my God, they've shown they have the skill and the bravery to do it.
Now, a failed asylum seeker from Iran has been detained indefinitely for the killing of an 87-year-old woman at her own home in North Yorkshire. Shaheen Davish Narenjbon befriended Brenda Blaney and lived with her in Thornton-le-Dale. He went on to strangle the pensioner and stab her in January last year. It's understood his asylum claim was refused in 2017, but he couldn't be removed from the UK because there wasn't a deportation agreement in place with Iran. That's the latest news. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Back now to Dan Wootton tonight.
Walk out Wednesday, work from home Wednesday, work shy Wednesday. Well, let's just be honest for 1 minute these days. It's walk out, work from home, work shy, whatever you want to call it, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday too. I mean, did we even notice? Did we even notice that 100,000 civil service folk walked out today when, as I've been pointing out for the past 2 years, they used the COVID excuse to stay in their posh houses, watching loose women in their pants at lunchtime and using their expensive Peloton bikes forevermore? The UK has a problem with work ethic. And what's effectively a general strike, forcing another lockdown scenario, is only going to make matters worse. And that's what I find so egregious today about this despicable teachers' strike, just the first of 7 planned actions closing up to 12,000 schools. The militant unions, and actually a large proportion of their politicised membership, are dragging their hapless pupils into an outlandish bid to force out a Conservative government. Now, let me be clear, I love teachers. My mum was a teacher. My dad recently retired as a head teacher. And good teachers are worth their weight in gold. But good teachers would never have dreamed for one moment of indoctrinating their students with a hard-left political ideology, all while stopping education-deprived kids hit so hard by the disgraceful COVID school closures to be able to learn yet again. Unlike the National Education Union, which has done just that.
United will never be defeated. United will never be defeated.
Now, let's bring a little reality to the union's propaganda. Teachers in England are incredibly well paid and well looked after compared to their foreign counterparts. In fact, the Daily Telegraph revealed OECD statistics today showing how teachers are among the highest paid for the fewest hours in Europe and the developed world, with salaries for experienced staff higher than even Sweden, Switzerland, France and Finland. Yep, hotbeds of socialism. And the mass walkout over pay comes despite a 5% increase last year, with starting teacher salaries actually hiked by nearly 9%. Now, ask anyone in the private sector if they would have been happy with a 9% pay rise last year. Hell yes. Look, times are tough, but gigantic increases in public sector pay would lead to an inflation death spiral, causing mass poverty and devastating ordinary, hard-working Brits. Don't forget, these irresponsible union bosses control Slippery Starmer's Labour with a dozen on the party's National Executive Committee. There's a reason why teacher strikes are banned or restricted in many EU countries, including Germany. But don't expect Labour to support important legislation to guarantee minimum service levels, given who funds their party. In fact, the Daily Mail reported today that Deputy Leader Angela Rayner has been given more than £100,000 over the last 3 years alone. That was an effective attack line taken by Rishi Sunak earlier today at PMQs.
He voted this week with the unions to oppose minimum safety levels. He voted with Just Stop Oil to water down the public order bill. And what do the unions and Just Stop Oil have in common? They bankroll him and his party, Mr. Speaker. So while he sides with extremist protesters and union bosses, we stand up for hard-working Britons and school children.
The craven unions are being selfish and irresponsible by treating our children's precious education as a political football, and their striking teachers are teaching vulnerable children all the wrong lessons. To respond now, my superstar panel. Former editor, current columnist at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. Dawn Neeson, as I say, I am incredibly supportive of teachers, but this is actually teachers starting to politicise their young children. It's wrong.
I think it's slightly weird when you see the kids on the picket lines with their little "I'm supporting the teachers" and give them more money, and then being encouraged to do the little boxes. Totally. And look, as you know where I stand on strikes, I'm the daughter of a Labour supporter, Labour member, FOC of a union, went on the picket lines. So I support the right to strike. I just am now getting increasingly wary about where this is going to end, how it's going to end. This is, as you say, almost a general strike. This is coordinated. And as you've also said, teachers in this country earn better than many other countries for less hours. And it's impossible for all the demands that the unions are having to be met. We just cannot afford it. So what's the end game? How is this going to end?
Ashley James? How do you answer that?
Well, hopefully with the pay rise, because unless we start to invest in
bigger than
public
9.5%.
services, but look, negotiations are not happening, and this is how unions have always worked. They put a price there and then there's negotiations. And actually the government have had a lot of time to stop these strikes from going ahead. May I remind everyone that people do not get paid when they go on strike. Lots of people do not want to strike, but they are desperately worried about the state of education settings. A lot of these teachers are going to get paid today. You know that because they've been very crafty. They refused to tell their head teachers who was actually going on strike. So actually there's a lot of speculation that these strikers will be paid for today's work, and I think that is today's lack of work, and I think that is disgraceful. I'd just like to also, point out something that you said about the OECD report, where it says that teachers are so much better paid in our country compared to others. Firstly, no teacher works the hours that they are meant to, and that is part of the problem. But secondly, if you look at the cost of living, the cost of bills, the cost of properties, the cost of childcare in other countries. Yeah, but it is. Our country has the world's most expensive childcare
now. But we pay our teachers more than teachers in Sweden.
Yeah, but in Sweden, they don't have the same property prices as us. They don't have the same cost of living crisis as us. They don't have the same childcare costs as us.
Teachers get 12 weeks holiday a year.
And which most of them have to work in, and by the way, they're not paid for the holidays. So we need to actually stop saying hard-working people, hard-working, ordinary taxpaying people.
They are paid for the holidays.
Our public services are the hard-working people.
What do you think of the NEU using children in their propaganda material. Is that appropriate?
Look, when I was at boarding
Can't the adults fight their own battles?
When I was at boarding school, I was made to march down the school drive saying, don't vote Labour, don't vote Conservative. So, I mean, it's always happened. But I actually think it's amazing that children are learning to stand up for what's important. And the fact of the matter is...
they've been indoctrinated.
The fact of the matter
They don't
is,
understand it.
like with our healthcare, so many teachers are leaving the profession, and also they cannot attract staff. So where does that leave us? One in three teachers leave profession within a decade.
Though, these children. Ashley says it's great. She says it's great because she agrees with this.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. Children don't understand this. They're not going to understand the figures and the politics behind this. They're being used for headlines and they're being used for effect. At the end of the day, I'm like you, Dan. I've got a family member that is a teacher who does not agree with what's going on today. And let's also, the viewers probably don't know, that the majority of teachers in this country did not vote to strike. You know, so it's not all teachers. You know, teaching is a great profession, but I think this is wrong. I think children have suffered today, missing a day's school. You know, I'm in a fortunate...
And it's not just going to be...
No, I'm in a fortunate position where I've put my children in private school, and while I can afford that, I will. So I haven't been affected. But there's many people in my area that are so angry today, customers, friends of friends.
Well, of course. And Dawn, we cannot forget the children themselves, because who were the kids most impacted by COVID school closures? The working class
kids. The poorer
kids,
working class
poor
kids. And
the deprived kids. And who is impacted again today? As Adam says, not the kids at private schools, but the working class.
It is the working.
But the teachers are striking for the future of children because they care deeply.
I really wish I believed that. I absolutely started off believing it and now I don't. I think this is overly politicised. And you've got to remember, the behaviour of the teachers today put a lot of ordinary working people losing money because they couldn't go to work.
It's affected so many. It's affected millions.
The way
trying
things
to
are...
get a national general strike because they want to put as much pressure as
people want
possible on the Conservative
a fair
government.
wage and a cost of living.
But can we just say their pension contributions are at 23.6%?
Teachers have lost 23% in real terms since 2010, and funding for schools has gone down.
So
but
do you not believe...
Hold on a minute. Funding for education is the highest it's ever been, by the way, ever.
But responsibility for teachers has also increased because the funding for things like social care, mental health services has declined. The teachers are having to step up into those roles. They're parent counsellors, port of call for social services, safeguard planning.
Fundamentally, look, I know folk on the left don't really get economics, and we learnt that with the BBC this week.
The Conservatives are doing a really good job of economics.
They don't get it. But the reality is, Ashley, if you increase the pay of all public sector workers, you know what you're going to do? You're going to cause inflation to go whoosh. And then who is impacted?
Yeah.
Who gets the worst possible poverty then?
The Conservatives talk so much about investment and growth. Who is going to invest in our country with poor education, lack of skilled workers, poor healthcare, unless we actually start
stop talking down Britain.
Dan,
stop talking down Britain and start talking down the union.
Dan, what is the average pay of a teacher in this country? What is the average pay?
It's actually remarkably high.
I've got the number of 42,000 written down from a research paper I see today.
For senior teachers, it's about well over.
Right, so it's 42,000 on average with 12 weeks holiday, a pension that contribution at 23.6% against private sector of 3.5%.
Yeah.
Look, this is a good gig.
Yeah. And you know what? Stop talking down Britain. Let's start talking us up.
Can I just say one thing about
the unions represent the working people of Britain.
No,
I'm sick of
representing Marxist. Marxist lunatics in their ranks.
Who voted to not feed hungry children.
Guess what?
Care
the
about
good
working
class people of Britain went to work today. Final word, Dawn.
I was just going to say the National Education Union cares so much about children. The head of it, Mary Boosted, actually during the pandemic advised teachers not to go to work with the mucky kids who spread germs, who touch everything, who cry, who wipe their snot on your trousers or your dress. That is caring about children.
And you know what, Dawn? When did I turn off those education unions? When they were demanding lockdowns throughout the entire pandemic, including, by the way, the need to stop exams. That all came from the teaching union. So shame on them and shameful on what they're doing today. Dawn Neeson, Adam Brooks, Ashley James. And by the way, you can say this about the education unions while still loving teachers, because I do. And there are so many good teachers out there today who are opposed to what's going on. Now, look, still to come, Lee Anderson's here to reveal the findings of his investigation into channel migrants in France. That's right, Westminster's toughest talking MP fires a warning at Rishi Sunak that his plans to tackle the migrant crisis won't work. He's live at 9:35 in the studio. But up next in The Clash, was the Queen right that Prince Andrew's image could be rehabilitated by taking on a life of charity work? Journalist, she's well connected, isn't she? Petronella Wyatt takes on the Duke's ex-girlfriend and biggest supporter, Lady Victoria Harvey, in what will be a fiery clash straight after the break. What do you think? Down at gbnews.uk. Vote at GB News. Back in a few minutes.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back. Eamon Holmes, back on the TV
Surprised
with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already to bless.
Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions are, those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on.
He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one.
Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time now for The Clash. And the late Queen reportedly suggested that her beloved son Andrew should devote himself to charitable work as a route back to public life. Now, that's according to an exclusive report in today's independent newspaper. The Duke of York's public image was tarnished by his close friendship with the paedophile billionaire Jeffrey Epstein and the allegations from Virginia Giuffre, which he decided not to fight in court. But his friends claim that his mother believed he should pursue a Profumo-style path to redemption through low-key good deeds. So what do you think? Was the late Queen right that Prince Andrew could be rehabilitated by taking on a life of charity work? Let me know your thoughts by emailing me dan@gbnews.uk. You can tweet me at gbnews and I'll bring you those results shortly. But to debate this now, the well-connected journalist and author Petronella Wyatt and Prince Andrew's biggest supporter, Lady Victoria Harvey. And Lady V, obviously you have backed Andrew, and I know you think he doesn't need to clear his name at all, and obviously we had an in-depth interview with you about that last week.
Right.
But do you think the Queen was right? Because to me, actually, the late Queen, this seemed like a really sensible suggestion from her. Andrew, focus on charity. Prove to the public that you've got what it takes to return to public life through your good deeds.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely going to be the way forward. As far as, you know, there's always going to be the negative people that are going to be saying things like, oh, whatever he does is going to be wrong. And, you know, I know it's like a lot of people have been concentrating on the whole photo debate and suddenly they're saying, oh, the photo has to be real. From the very beginning, I want to make it super, super clear, which I think we already have. The photo is a photo of a photo of a photo.
That
right?
doesn't mean that it
No, just listen to me 1 second. The last time that photo was copied was in the US. I always had the date of March 13th. That's been public knowledge for a super long time.
Because, Lady V, you insist this photo that we're looking at here, you insist this photo is fake.
But it's now being proven.
The artist, it's not
real.
proven,
Petronella.
It's the Mail on Sunday.
Forensic experts.
I have forensics, and I'll give you my results of my forensics.
But you have a vested interest. You're
I don't have a vested interest. I'm not. He's a friend.
You told me, exactly. You told me that you are essentially on his team.
I am not on his team. I can't be on his team yet.
You claim that you know the guy who faked the photo.
I do.
So why did he not come forward before Andrew settled?
No, because I didn't know him then. So he only came forward to me, and we had.
But this whole thing
I had to get police to check this guy out for the last 10 months. He has a criminal record. He was too terrified. He then admitted to me he's an artist, so that's how Ghislaine knew him and Epstein, and they're the ones that got him to change the heads. It was then rephotographed to set Andrew up from the very beginning.
Why would they do that when she's now saying he's innocent and Ghislaine's saying the photo is a fake?
What about it? She's always
nothing you say is.
But all I'm saying is, so the third time it was photographed, was always in the US. It was always done with a shitty throwaway camera.
So that's the photo. That's the photo.
May I say
and look, I understand there's a debate about this photo.
He's never been found guilty. He's never said he's guilty.
But I'd like to say something about
So Petronella, can you respond to that specifically, and then bring in this Profumo link, which obviously the Queen was pushing, because what Lady Victoria says is actually Andrew has been found guilty of no crime, so should he not have a chance to rehabilitate?
No, we have to be realistic because with Andrew, it's all about Andrew. He is now a huge embarrassment to the royal family. We have a coronation coming up. If he wants to rehabilitate himself, he should just shut up and not overshadow his brothers. Wait a minute. Coronation. It's just typical Andrew's selfishness. And I'm afraid that the court of public opinion, whether you like it or not, has... it's now irrelevant whether he was guilty or not, but he's...
OK, so Lady V, can I just ask you a question before you come in?
Of course.
Moving that forward.
Sure.
So, why has he not just gone away quietly and started doing charity work? Because then he could come out and say, for 3 years, I've been working on this charity project.
I mean, this is how I'm interpreting it, but right now, he's really got nothing to lose at this point. And why is he going to let this woman...
But why is he humiliating his family and his brother?
He's not. He wants to fight. He wants to fight this girl.
But
This girl has ruined his... She has ruined his life.
Sorry, King Charles has always privately backed Andrew.
That's not what I'm hearing.
What are you hearing?
I'm hearing that he wishes he would keep a lid on it until after the coronation
But it's always going to be something,
and also,
isn't it?
his plans for the slimmed-down monarchy were never going to include Andrew. And also, there's no comparison with Profumo, because Profumo, after he resigned, never returned to public life. Never. He did his charitable work unpublicised and won a lot of admiration for that. He never tried to worm his way back into politics.
We're not in the Middle Ages right now, and I get hundreds of people writing me every day.
Ages.
Well, we're not, and I have people writing me every day, going, you know what? It's not fair on him. It's the media that is telling him to do this stuff, but actually the public, the ones that write to me all the time, are basically saying, you know what? He's never been proven to anything. He's not done anything wrong.
So
he needs to get a chance.
do you feel that the public mood is changing? Because, of course, Ian Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell's brother, released this photograph last week of two people in a bath.
But that proved very opposite the point.
Actually, Petronella, 1 second. So that bathtub actually proves a lot, because Virginia wrote...
It proves the opposite.
She wrote in her memoir, it's a circular bathtub in the middle of the room. Does that look like a circular bathtub in the middle of the room?
But weren't they trying to prove that there wasn't enough space in the bathtub?
Yes, but they
proved that you could.
You could.
They proved there would be room for four.
But the whole thing, what you're all missing is, she said it was a circular bathtub in the middle of the room. Now, the plans of that bathroom and the plumbing and everything, that bathtub has always been like that. It was never a circular bathtub in the middle of the room.
I have been very, very critical of Prince Andrew for the decisions that he's made over the past few years in regards to this, and Lady V and I have had numerous bust-ups about it. However, do you not feel a little bit concerned that this man has been brought down by a woman, Virginia Giuffre, who has now proven to have lied about Alan Dershowitz?
I'm no fan of Virginia Giuffre. No fan. And it may be that Andrew never had sex with her. He's brought himself down. He's brought himself down, the Emily Maitlis interview, by being caught out on various lies, by his arrogance. But, you know... the public don't like him. The public don't like him.
OK, just say they don't like him. I know he's apparently had quite a few run-ins with journalists and stuff in the past, but that doesn't mean he's guilty. It doesn't mean he has to just, like, not do anything for the rest of his life. You know what I mean? It's not... He can't be sort of living...
But he is guilty.
But clearly he's not going quiet.
He's not going quiet. He's guilty of being the unrepentant friend of a convicted paedophile. Why did he go back and stay with him in New York after Epstein was released from prison?
And he didn't apologise for that.
Exactly.
Well, so, I mean, from what I heard or whatever, so if we actually backtrack to that first time Jeffrey was arrested, it was not a big story. Like, I don't know if you remember it, but it was not front-page news. It was not a big deal.
But Andrew knew that he was a child sex trafficker, though, when he went to stay with
Exactly.
He wasn't. Was he a child? When I think of children, right? And when I think of trafficking, I think of girls in cages. I don't think of Virginia Giuffre on a yacht in Saint-Tropez drinking champagne.
That is medieval, what you're saying.
No, because I have a friend that actually has a charity that helps girls that were trafficked, that were literally
So are you
imprisonated.
saying none of these girls, are you saying they're all liars, then?
No, not all of them, but
Every
I believe
single
some
one.
of them are. Some, not all.
It was interesting. We had Alan Dershowitz on the show.
I have some big whistleblowers that have come out to me as well at the moment.
So, basically, you think the majority of the girls lied?
I believe, not the majority, I believe quite a few have
What
lied.
Alan Dershowitz
Yeah.
was saying in our interview last week is that it is the media's responsibility to take the allegations seriously, but it's also the media's responsibility to look into whether there may have been a miscarriage.
Can I just say
I
that
know
we did-
about the
do you
bribery
remember-
with the lawyers that
Do you remember
they were made to
Nick, the
fabricate
case of
stories.
Nick?
Yes.
Who wrongly accused
who was
senior
sucked
politics,
in,
and the media
who sucked in
exposed
James O'Brien
Nick.
and sucked in Tom Watson.
Yes, exactly.
But the media ended up exposing Nick.
Yes, they did.
But do you not think the same thing could be happening here with Giuffre, given that she has had to apologise to
I honestly
Dershowitz?
don't think...
I mean, there's a lot of exposure coming out about her.
I'm not... I mean, Dershowitz...
So she claimed to have had sex with Dershowitz six times.
I know
six
she
times,
did.
and then she forgot, and she got the wrong person. Have you had sex with someone 6 times and forgotten who they were?
I know, but I think it's different with Andrew, though. Unfortunately,
There's probably some people you've had sex with who you want to forget.
And also, he's a member of the royal family, and members of the royal family ought to be they can't conduct themselves like private individuals. They have to be so careful as to who
But
they
he doesn't take
consort
photos with anyone. I don't know how well you know him, but he does not take pictures with anybody.
Well, that's not quite true.
Very
because
few.
I've
There's no
seen...
way he would do a picture with someone like that.
Okay.
No way.
Well, look, fascinating debate. As I've said, I'm going to keep an open mind. We've got to discuss this case, and it's very
going to be a weekly update.
Both sides of the story from you. One of the country's top connected journalists, Petronella Wyatt, and Prince Andrew's biggest supporter, Lady Victoria Harvey. So who do you agree with on this? Was the late Queen right that Prince Andrew could be rehabilitated by taking on a life of charity work? Flo on Twitter says, I think this was a noble suggestion from our dear Queen. If this was her suggestion, then I am in support of it. Lil says, work hard, Andrew, and earn your respect. You've got to start from the bottom and climb your way back up. And from Alan, I wouldn't blame her for trying. He was, after all, her son. However, I don't think it will work. And your verdict is now in. Just 31% of you agree that the late Queen was right, that Andrew can be rehabilitated. 69% of you disagree. Now, coming up, as Harry and Meghan are notably absent from Oprah's star-studded birthday bash, are they even too toxic for their Hollywood friends now? Our very own Nana Aquare dives into this one at 9:50. But first, Westminster's toughest talking MP, Lee Anderson, reveals all about his investigation into channel migrants in France and sends a warning to Rishi Sunak about his plans to tackle the crisis. Don't miss the latest edition of The Real World with Lee, straight after the break.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Join me, Nana Aquare, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Time now for the real world with Lee Anderson, and up to 100,000 civil servants have been on strike today, meaning they could go out for vegan brunches, ride their Peloton bikes and switch on loose women. So actually no different from your average Wednesday, right, when they're working from home. Lee, on the other hand, has returned from a very important fact-finding mission in Calais as he gets to the bottom of the migrant crisis. And he made this crucial discovery. Watch.
I'm still furious. I'm foaming at the mouth over this Care for Calais organisation. They're acting like a magnet for these young men to set up camp here. They're basically feeding them, clothing them. They're teaching them how to speak English, how to read and write in English, and then waiting for them. Once they cross the channel, they're waiting for them and volunteering in hotels to support them while they're there.
Well, Lee, so it feels like this trip was very worthwhile. What else did you discover?
Well, it was worthwhile, Dan. I mean, what we discovered was quite frankly, it was shocking. We went to a migrant camp in Calais, and it was all young men from Africa, from Sudan and from Eritrea. Young women in the camp who were working for Care for Calais. We've seen some inappropriate behaviour as well, holding hands and getting a little bit too close. It's an industry. This is the final leg of the journey. These young men are travelling from Africa. They've got no money in their pockets. How do they earn that money? So the gendarme told us that they do it through a life of crime when they get there. They're either thieving, they're robbing, it's prostitution, it's drug dealing. And to make matters worse, Care for Calais, these young people are teaching them how to speak English and getting them ready for the journey. And like I said in the clip there, when they get to the UK, these people, hundreds of them, the Care for Calais volunteers, are waiting in British hotels to take them on the next step of the journey to claim asylum. It's absolutely disgraceful. They should hang their heads in shame. In fact, they need investigating by the charities.
Well, I was going to say, what can we do about this? Because the way Care for Calais is presented in the mainstream media constantly is as if they're this great humanitarian organisation. They're given carte blanche to say whatever they want about how inhumane our policies are.
Well, they're not. I mean, they made it quite clear to me that they believe in open borders. They believe in a universal passport. They say that any one of the 80 million displaced people in the world should be allowed to come to the UK to claim asylum. Absolutely out of touch. A lot of these young girls that we're speaking to on the gap years from uni probably never had a real job, never lived in the real world, and they're just a bunch of do-gooders who are making a mockery of our asylum system.
And so what are you going to do as a result of this trip? I mean, are there ways to report back? Because the problem is, Lee, this is an emergency.
It is.
We don't have time to waste.
I've been banging on about this, you know, since I got elected. So we went as part of the Home Affairs Select Committee. So we're doing a letter report to Rishi. That goes to him. We've already fed back through his secretaries, fed back to the Home Secretary. They know. They've seen it on GB News as well. Furious is not the word. You know, like I say, it's an old industry. The people smugglers and Care for Calais, they're different sides of the coin, but they're both doing the same thing. They're encouraging this evil trade. And like I said before on this show, whilst ever I'm at that place over there, the madhouse, I'll keep banging on about it.
Suella Braverman, the Home Secretary, this week, encouraging us all to keep the faith in the Conservative Party to solve this issue. But you can understand, Lee, that now we've got this new prediction of 80,000 arriving in what is an invasion this year. I mean, it's getting tougher to keep the faith because we need emergency action.
It's getting tougher, Dan, for me to look my constituents in the eye and say we're going to solve this, because we've marched them up the hill many, many times and they still keep coming. Rishi's made a pledge today in PMQs that if you arrive here illegally, you've got no chance of claiming asylum and you'll get sent straight back. We wanted that from day one, so let's see if it delivers.
You know, leave the ECHR. Leave the ECHR.
Rip
It is the only way that this will be resolved. And the problem is, I worry that this has all been left too late, you know, because the election is just around the corner and this takes time.
Yeah,
I know what the courts are going to do.
I worry about that. I think, you know, my opinion has always been just ignore it and just crack on. What they're going to do, put us all in prison? No chance.
Indeed. Now, look, Lee, allies of Boris Johnson in the Conservative Democratic Organisation have called for the next party chairman to be elected by members. And were that to happen, I'm sure there's many members who would love to see your name on the ballot, Lee Anderson. Would you be interested in a role like Tory chairman?
Well, look, listen, I'm not going to sit here like one of those politicians and say, I don't want a promotion, it's not for me, blah, blah, blah. Of course I would be. I mean, it'd be a great honour, considering where I've come from. I've come from a Labour Party background, been a Labour councillor, worked for a Labour MP, and now I'm a Conservative Member of Parliament. My story is, I mean, I like my own story. I'm a working class Tory. One of the 5 million that voted Conservative for the very first time because we put our faith in Boris and the party. And I think some of our membership actually do like me, but I think the country needs reminding and my party needs reminding on what a working class Tory is, and I represent that, but I've got no chance.
Well, that's sad.
Sad.
That's sad to me because it shows that the party is out of touch with the people who it desperately needs to be voting.
It's not just our party, it's all parties are out of touch with the electorate and the membership. That's just politics, Dan.
Well, hopefully that can change. Finally, Lee, your old buddy, the anti-Brexit rabble-rouser Steve Bray was at his odious worst earlier on when he delivered his trademark kick. Well, this was during a BBC debate. But let me tell you, those BBC bouncers are not to be messed with. Look.
Steve, it's very nice. Steve, it's nice of you to come and join us, but for those of you listening at home, Steve Bray is down.
So Lee, at last the BBC stick up for Brexit, but through their security guards.
Well, look, I mean, it's this type of behaviour from the BBC that's encouraging me to buy a TV licence again and renege on my promise to rip it up. But look, this man, we know this creature. He wanders around Whitehall on a regular basis, quite clearly unhinged. I think what he does need is a prolonged heavy dose of medication and a good straitjacket. I think that'll sort him out.
Do you still want to challenge him to a
I've challenged him to a 3-round boxing match. Obviously, the weight division he's in, by looking at that clip there, it looks like he's in the overweight division. So I think I could take him out in 3. I might just toy him for a few rounds, but he's quite clearly unhinged. I don't know what medication he's on. I know he drinks a lot, but he's a public nuisance.
I was speaking to some folk who were at that event last night, Lee. Of course, the BBC, even though they had to get rid of Bray, had stacked the audience with Ramonas.
Yeah, well, of course, that's what they do. It's so biased, Dan. You know that. I mean, this is one of the reasons that I love GBNews, because, it doesn't matter what your politics are, you've got a platform here. You've got all sorts of people on there. You've even got ex-Labour MPs presenting business shows on it. And the great Jacob Rees-Mogg, I believe, going on very,
He's on his way.
He's a gentleman, but the BBC, it's not anti-Beeb, it's anti-British.
No, it is. I totally agree with that. I can reveal Jacob Rees-Mogg having a look around the studio earlier, so it's coming. It's coming, folks. Jacob,
you have to put your tie on when Jacob comes in,
I know, he wasn't impressed. So are you. Lee Anderson, The Real World. Thank you so much, Lee. Now, coming up, after Labour's Rosie Duffield says fighting for women's rights within the party is like being in an abusive relationship, is the PM right that we can't trust Keir Starmer to protect Britain's women? That's our big debate at 10 tonight. But first, as the Sussexes are excluded from Oprah's star-studded birthday bash, are they now even too toxic for Hollywood? Our very own Nana Requer live on this straight after the break.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons. I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Nana Acquair is tonight's outsider. Now, over the weekend, US talk show legend Oprah Winfrey celebrated her 69th birthday in style by attending a star-studded 25th anniversary party for the makeup brand Anastasia Beverly Hills. And the double celebration was a who's who of Hollywood lovies, with the likes of Kim Kardashian and J-Lo rubbing shoulders with the TV host. But one particular celebrity couple was notably absent from the star-studded bash, the increasingly toxic Sussexes. It seems that despite the Duke and Duchess of Woke's desperation to seek refuge among California's A-listers, having even invited Oprah to their wedding before their tell-all sit-down with the host a few years later, the Montecito Moaners are becoming increasingly isolated. So, Nana, have the Hollywood elite finally caught on to the Sussexes and exiled them? Because remember, this isn't the first big bash, Nana, that they were disinvited to. They were desperate to get an invite to Obama's big party and were also snubbed from that.
Well, I mean, this is actually quite funny, really. I mean, I threw my head back in laughter when I saw, I mean, on that list were people like Jessica Alba, Kim Kardashian, loads of really big megastars, Sharon Stone. And this bit got me because at this particular event, Oprah has actually invited people who she's known for years, who she cares about, unlike Meghan and Harry. Of course, Meghan invited only her mum, only member of the family. Then, of course, she had a load of stars. She invited, I think it was David Beckham, James Blunt, I think people that she clearly probably didn't know. But one of the people who she said she couldn't invite, I think it was her niece. Was it her niece? I think it's her, yeah. Who she claimed it was because the palace had said that she couldn't but it turned out obviously that was an untruth.
Rubbish.
But the thing is, what must have got Meghan, because she must have seen it on Kim Kardashian's Instagram. Kim Kardashian put this: "Happy birthday, Oprah. Sharon Stone said it best last night, toasting you, that you mean the world to the world. Happy birthday."
It's brilliant, isn't it? It's brilliant because I think what it shows to Meghan is that if you just try and curate friendships to advance your own career, as in you invite someone to your wedding simply because you want them to interview you, it's going to end up backfiring because none of those friendships are genuine.
Well, of course not. And the people in Hollywood, they're not stupid. I mean, they've been in there for a long time, a lot of these people that she invited. It was quite interesting because with Harry's book, Spare, with the book, apparently there's a shop in Montecito that was selling it, and there were loads spare. Nobody was buying it. And what the worry is, and this is what they're saying in an article, I was reading The Spectator earlier, a lady called Kennedy, she wrote that the Sussexes equal drama, and everybody over here is starting to realise that they never intended on having a quiet life. And the reason people aren't inviting them is because they're worried that these people are just going to talk about it, they're going to try and sell the stories, nobody's conversations will be private, they just shot themselves in the foot. I mean, it's quite funny. But my favourite bit, and I think the moment I think that this really hit home must have been when Harry, in that Tom Bradbury interview, decided to say racism, racism. And Oprah must have watched that. She would have seen that and thought, hang on a minute, you've just made me look stupid.
Yes.
We all followed the narrative, and now you've made us look stupid. And
well, they have made her look like a fool, because I was highly critical of Oprah during that interview, Nana, because she didn't do the basics as a journalist. She didn't ask the who, what, where, why. And if she'd asked those questions, actually, she would have very quickly exposed Meghan's royal racist claim as a total forgery, a fakery. It didn't happen. It was completely not true. But you're right, that's now been rolled back. And so Oprah's going to clearly be furious about it. And Nana, I believe that you think, actually, a lot of Meghan's race claims are coming to backfire because, of course, she never used to talk about being a black woman before she entered the royal family, before she was with Prince Harry.
Well, that's because she didn't need to, because in America she sort of hid, in my view, I think she hid the fact that she was actually any mix at all. I hear that on her resume, on her CV, it said that she was Caucasian. And I think in America, nobody kind of saw her as having a mix. So when she came to this country, we celebrated the fact that she has the mix. We couldn't believe that our royal family had a real mixed race woman. And we were so happy that there was a diversity in there. And we celebrated it. And she had never, I think when she made that quote about feeling like a black woman, what she was actually saying was, oh my God, they've acknowledged that I am black. I have some black in me. And at that point, she'd never acknowledged it herself. That's what I think. And I suspect that after that, she realised what a weapon it could be, and she started using it as a weapon. I mean, let's not forget that they picked up the Ripple of Hope Award, wasn't it, for getting rid of structural racism in the royal family. And then Harry denied that there was any racism around the people that I know, he said, wouldn't be like that. When Susan Hussey was brought up, he kind of said that she's not racist. He kind of referred to the fact that he didn't think she was racist at all. But why didn't he say that sooner? So what has happened is they've kind of tied themselves in knots with the things they've said. And it now proves, from what Harry's saying, that the royal family are not really racist at all.
Indeed, and the thing they've done, Nana, and I actually think there's some real sweet justice here. They have isolated all of the people who stood by them during their time in the royal family here in the UK, but now they've also isolated the woke warriors in Hollywood who say, actually, you should be campaigning constantly about race in the British royal family. Fascinating analysis, Nana. We will keep on the story, of course, and Nana back on GB News this weekend at 4 o'clock. But coming up, Britain's strictest head teacher gives us a lesson on the devastating effect walkouts will have on students already scarred by lockdowns. Catherine Burblesig live with me in the studio for an exclusive interview on a very big day for education at 10:15. Also, after Sipri Starmer was slammed by Rishi Sunak at PMQs over his failure to protect women's rights, is the PM right that we can't trust the Labour leader to protect Britain's women? That's our big debate in the Media Buzz straight after the break. We're back in 2.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, COVID chaos and now walkout Wednesday. 200,000 teachers go on strike across England and Wales. And it's bad enough that more than half of schools were disrupted by the walkouts. But was it necessary to manipulate the minds of young children on the picket lines? On a dark day for our country's educators, Britain's strictest head teacher, Catherine Birbalsingh, gives her unmissable reaction live in the studio at 10:15. With Nicola Sturgeon at the centre of a self-made political meltdown, has trans extremism finally finished off the First Minister? Our woke slayer-in-chief, Jim Davidson, tells me why her days could be numbered in Uncancelled at 10:40. But while the Sturge fails to safeguard women in Scotland, Keir Starmer can't even stick up for female colleagues in his own party.
Can't be trusted to stand up for the women in his party. He can't be trusted to stand up for Britain.
Labour fails to stand up for their brave campaigner Rosie Duffield. Can they really be trusted to protect Britain's women? That's our big debate with my superstar panel next. Joining me tonight, Dawn Neeson, Adam Brooks and Ashley James. Plus, Australia's foreign minister and wokest politician is certainly making waves during her first visit on our shores with this Britain-hating speech.
Understanding the past enables us to better share the present and the future. It gives us the opportunity to find more common ground than if we stay sheltered in narrower versions of our country's histories.
She can rack off back to Australia as far as I'm concerned, but I'll ask whether we should be confronting our colonial past just because Australia tells us to. That's in the media buzz at 10:30. And finally, will the Princess of Wales be adorned with a new crown when I decide today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass at 10:50? The first front pages will arrive in mere moments too, right after Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you and good evening. Hundreds of thousands of workers were out on the streets tonight taking part in Walkout Wednesday, the UK's biggest day of industrial action in more than a decade. Up to 500,000 people across 7 trade unions went on strike throughout the day over pay, jobs and conditions. Teachers took part in the action and so did Border Force officers and bus and train drivers, which caused widespread travel disruption. The Education Minister, Nick Gibb, described the strikes as disappointing.
It is disappointing that the NEU, one of those 4 unions, has taken strike action today, jeopardising children's education. They've already suffered 2 years of interruption during the COVID pandemic, so this is the last thing children need, and it's the last thing parents need. So I say, look, let's talk, let's continue those talks about these important issues.
And tonight in Milton Keynes, a community has been holding a candlelit vigil for a 4-year-old girl who was killed by her own pet dog. Thames Valley Police say Alice Stones was attacked in the back garden of her home yesterday. Officers described the incident as tragic, adding that in order to ensure public safety, a decision was made to destroy the dog humanely. No arrests were made, and police are now establishing the exact breed of the dog. In the United States, the FBI search for classified documents at President Joe Biden's beach house in Delaware has come to an end. His lawyer says agents didn't find any files with classified markings as they'd thought. The operation was part of an ongoing investigation into Biden's handling of classified documents. The FBI found some at one of his other homes in Delaware last month, and his former private office was also searched in November. Now, Boris Johnson has been urging Western leaders today to further boost their support for Ukraine. Speaking in Washington, he told senior politicians that President Volodymyr Zelensky should be given all the equipment he needs. He asked them to supply fighter jets, which Downing Street has so far ruled out.
So God bless America for having the guts and the wisdom to help. And I implore you now to follow the logic of what you are all doing and give the Ukrainians the tools to finish the job. Give them the deep fire artillery systems, give them the tanks, give them the planes, because they have a plan. They know what they need to do, and my God, they've shown they have the skill and the bravery to do it.
Boris Johnson. Now, lastly, a former child soldier has had to be locked up indefinitely after stabbing a stranger to death in central London. 27-year-old Teddy Fanta from Eritrea killed 60-year-old Stephen Dempsey outside a shop in Oxford Street in London in 2021. Prosecutors say it was a ferocious, random and unprovoked attack. The court heard that Fanta suffers from paranoid schizophrenia and had a history of violence after arriving in Britain in 2014. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're with GB News Tonight. Let's get back to Dan Wootton tonight.
I've got the first front pages here, so we're going to go to the Metro first. And now it really hurts is their headline, as the paper reveals that strike action since last summer has now cost the UK's already struggling economy a whopping £2 billion. The Guardian reports that the spending watchdog is investigating the decision to provide £220,000 of taxpayers' money for Boris Johnson's legal defence in the inquiry into his Partygate denials. The Eye leads with news that allies of Liz Truss are urging her to preserve party unity as she prepares for a return to frontline politics, which could ignite Tory infighting. Why shouldn't she be able to have her say, for goodness sake? We need to hear from Liz Truss right now, I believe. My superstar panel, back with me now, former editor, current columnist at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. Now, Labour's attempts to silence women in their party is not going well. Rosie Duffield, one of the party's most prominent women's rights campaigners, exposed the problem when she likened being a Labour MP to being in an abusive relationship after she was heckled by male colleagues over trans issues. And as we know, women's rights or biology isn't her leader's strong point either.
A woman can have a penis.
Look, I'm not... I don't think we can conduct this debate with, you know...
Sorry, have I offended you in some way?
No, it's just... I just...
Was forced to speak out because being in his party had reminded her of being in an abusive relationship. And then his own office was caught undermining her. He ought to be supporting her and her colleagues, but if he can't be trusted to stand up for the women in his party, he can't be trusted to stand up for Britain.
Rishi Sunak taking Starmer to task over his flimsy stance on women's rights today. So public opinion appears to be firmly behind the PM and Duffield when it comes to women's safety. A YouGov poll found that 59% of Britons think trans sex offenders like Adam Graham should serve their sentences in men's prisons, while just 15% believe they should endanger women in a female prison. So is Sunak right that slippery Starmer can't be trusted to protect women's rights, Dawn Neeson?
I don't understand what Keir Starmer's problem is. Why can't he identify what 50% of the population actually are? What is he scared of? I really don't understand it. I mean, he is trying to win over a tiny percentage of people while sacrificing the vast majority of us. And I think how Rosie, who I'm a huge admirer of, has been treated by her own party is appalling. This is a woman that has been domestically abused. She was abused herself. She knows what she's talking about when she talks about men being abusive to women and what it feels like. So she's very aware that, you know, what women could suffer if Nicola Sturgeon's insane ruling actually gets any further than it is. And as for that, Nicola Sturgeon this week, when really pushed on whether that Adam Isla, whatever his name is, was a woman, she finally said, well, yes. And it's like, no, he's not. He's a rapist. Women cannot rape. We don't have penises. It's not that difficult, Keir Starmer. It really isn't.
Ashley James, do you concede that Labour is now in a real tight squeeze here because women just feel like Starmer is not prepared to stand up for them?
I think that's unfair to put that onto Labour and to suggest that the Conservatives stand up for women, because we know that there is an issue with women in politics and how they are treated across the board. I would also argue that rape convictions have completely collapsed under the Conservative government. When Keir Starmer was Director of UK Public Prosecutions, there was a
just
record
remind me
number
which
of
party have had
convictions.
3 Prime Ministers who have been female?
Yeah, but also they allowed the Conservative MP for Delyn to rejoin the party despite him being found that he harassed a member of staff.
But you're doing what about it?
It's
You're
not
doing
what about me.
It absolutely is.
What I'm saying is this is not a left or right situation.
Has delivered 3 female Prime Ministers, Ashley, and you've got Keir Starmer, who will not stand up for a female MP who wants to protect women.
Women are not a monolith, so Rosie, I think she has lots of valid points, but there's also lots of people on both sides,
no, she's 100%
including
right.
me, who also want to stand up for trans rights, for trans women's rights, and I don't think that they're one against the other.
For Adam Graham?
No, I agree. I said it last week. I don't think any sex offender should be let anywhere near women, and actually there is something called the Corsten...
You're a TERF?
No, because it's not that... it's a very complex situation, and I think arguments
but you're a
like
trans
this...
exclusionary radical feminist.
No, I don't, because I believe in that trans rights and women's rights can coexist, and ultimately...
But can I just clarify? Can I just clarify? You're saying that a trans woman should not be in a women's prison, which makes you a TERF. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, by the way. I think it's a great thing. I'm claiming back the word
sex
TERF.
Offenders should not be let anywhere near women.
It's a trans woman.
Predatory men exist with or without trans rights. And also, trans women are also victims of male violence.
But you
and
think
there's lots of examples of trans women being raped and killed in male prisons. Should not be allowed
to be in a women's prison.
Yeah, but there's lots of examples of trans women being victims of male violence, being raped or killed in men.
Separate facility for trans people.
Separate prisons, separate Olympics, separate sports events.
Right.
Problem solved.
Ashley?
I would just like to say that there was something called the Corsten report that came out 15 years ago that showed that women's prisons need reform anyway. Lots of women shouldn't be in prisons. There's no place in female prisons for serious violent crimes. So I agree.
That's a different
discussion. No, it's not.
But
what I'm saying is I agree that sexual offenders should not be allowed in women's prisons.
Is the fact that Keir Starmer is not prepared to stand up for women. And I know you don't dislike Rishi Sunak, and look, I'm no great fan of Rishi Sunak, but
I
you
don't
must
care whether it's on the left or the right.
Today.
I don't care about the left or the right. What I care about is women's rights. And neither of these
sound
governments,
like it.
neither of these... How can you say that? I've literally
If we
been
push
victim of
trans rights
sexual
any
violence,
further
but
from where we are now, women's rights lose out. There is no movement now,
If
as
you really
far
want
as
to
I can
stand up
see.
for women, we should be reforming
I
the
do
Met.
stand
We
up
should
for
be
women.
tackling and convicting perpetrators of violence against women, who are mainly men.
I call out violence against women, and I think the people...
we speak about those issues all the time.
I think
We've spoken about the
men that
problems and they
strike
make
women or abuse women are disgusting human beings. At the end of the day, this is about Rosie Duffield and Keir Starmer, and I think Rosie
That's not what it
Duffield...
represents.
I think Rosie Duffield is a hero. I think she's a woman to look up to. I think she is brave. I think that Keir Starmer, to your question, why he doesn't do it, he is scared of a very vocal minority that bully the left
and that's
into
why
doing...
all this week I have been actually on a concerted effort to claim back the word TERF. I think it's genuinely important because TERF has been used as a derogative term, something to put down folk like... J.K. Rowling, and actually all they're trying to do is say allow trans people to live a life safely and happily, but protect biological...
J.K. Rowling is very, very brave, and I feel to label her as transphobic is so wrong on so many levels. This woman is so
but what
brave.
they also label her as is a TERF, as if it's about trans exclusion, radical feminists. Actually, all being a TERF means is that there are certain occasions, not many, by the way, but certain occasions where biological women and girls might be at risk, where they need a single-sex space. And if you believe in that, for example, women's prison, it makes you a TERF. And I just think it's fascinating, actually. You've been anti these TERFs for so long, but now you're saying that actually you are.
I've always stood up for women's rights, but I don't think women's rights are exclusive to trans women's rights. But also, what I get annoyed about is that you're saying that Rishi Sunak is standing up for women. If he stood up for women, he would include violence against women and girls in the online safety bill. He would support maternity rights, reproductive rights, childcare rights, and he's not doing that. And neither is the Labour government.
He destroyed Keir Starmer today in Parliament.
What I am saying is this is not a left or a right situation.
No, it's not. It's about what's right
there is a problem
and what's wrong. Because, by the way, J.K. Rowling is a big old lefty, and she don't agree with me on anything, actually.
No.
But on this issue of women's rights, we're completely
I would also
united.
just like to point out that the trans community makes up something like 0.05%
Exactly, which is why it's so despicable
of the population.
that Nicola Sturgeon
If you care
and
about
folk
women's
like
rights,
her
we should
have
be looking
decided
at
to make them a
the endemic of male violence, which is mainly cis men. So actually,
So
trans rights
why should we give them another opportunity, male sexual predators, another opportunity to abuse women, which is what Nicola Sturgeon's bill does.
Dan, this poll that says 2/3, that's complete nonsense. If you asked everyone in the street, it would be 99%. It's not just 66%.
And Starmer's very vulnerable on this issue. But it wasn't just the trans debate, the only civil war brewing at PMQs today for Labour. The party's been dogged, as you know, by anti-Semitism allegations in recent years, and Keir Starmer must have had his head in his hands when backbencher, a Jeremy Corbyn ally, surprise, surprise, Kim Johnson asked this.
Since the election of the fascist Israeli government in December last year, there has been an increase in human rights violations against Palestinian civilians, including children. So can the Prime Minister tell us how he is challenging what Amnesty and other human rights organisations are referring to an apartheid state?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Lady also failed to mention the horrific attacks on civilians inside Israel as well.
Upon leaving the chamber, Johnson was summoned by the Chief Whip and was ordered to apologise for her remarks, which she duly did in a subsequent point of order.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would like to apologise unreservedly for the intemperate language that I used during PMQs. I was wrong to use the term fascist in relation to the Israeli government and understand why this was particularly insensitive given the history of the State of Israel.
She certainly knows how to read off the script, doesn't she, to keep her job. Actually, James, Adam Brooks, Dawn Neeson, do stand by, because coming up, is Australia's foreign minister and wokest politician wrong to come to London and urge the UK to confront our colonial past in a controversial major speech? I'm going to get the thoughts of my superstar panel in the Media Buzz at 10:30. And next, Britain's kids can't get a break as up to 200,000 teachers go on strike across England and Wales. Britain's strictest head teacher, Catherine Burblesing, gives her unmissable reaction to the day's events live in the studio. She's with me after the break.
He's the king of breakfast TV and he's back.
Eamon Holmes back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already depressed.
Yeah. Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pearce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, up to 23,000 schools were disrupted in England and Wales today as teachers staged a mass walkout demanding better pay. The strike follows an already chaotic period for British kids after schools were needlessly locked down during the COVID pandemic. So with school kids already damaged by that appalling decision, is it right for their education to be jeopardised again by today's strike action? Well, there's no one who you'd rather hear from on this subject in an exclusive interview. I'm delighted to be joined by Britain's strictest head teacher, Catherine Birbalsingh. Now, Catherine, of course, you have such an expert opinion on this. I feel personally very sympathetic to teachers and head teachers. My mum was a teacher. My dad, his entire career, was a teacher who ended up as a head teacher. So I love good teachers, right? I absolutely think good teachers are worth their weight in gold. I'm really struggling with what I've been seeing over the past couple of days, which feels like teachers trying to indoctrinate their students into backing what is, in my view, a very political opinion.
Yeah, well, it is, and I understand. Look, I have great sympathy for the teachers. I have great sympathy for teachers because behaviour is very difficult in classrooms, bureaucracy is out of control, and there are real reasons why teachers should be upset and angry. I'm not sure right now is the right time to be striking. And I think that because I think about the children, in particular year 11s and year 13s who are getting ready for their GCSEs and their A-levels. The thing is that last year, those year 11s and 13s last year had up to a third of GCSE content cut from their exams. And that was because government recognised that COVID had affected their preparation for their exams. Well, the same thing is the case for this year. It's just that they missed out their GCSE and A-level content when they were in year 10, and yet no changes have been made at all to the exams coming up. Not only that, but we've been told that the top marks will be halved in terms of numbers. So there's so much pressure on those year 11s and year 13s right now. And so for teachers to be striking now, I just think it's the worst possible time for those kids.
Well, it feels like treating children's education like a political football, and there could be 7 more days of these strikes.
And of course, this is going closer and closer to their exams, so I worry about that. The other thing that I worry about in terms of the timing of these strikes is our families. So many families over COVID, you know, if you work in a school with disadvantaged children, families who move from insecure job to insecure job, they don't work for the public sector, so they're not able to strike. And many lost their jobs over COVID. And I do feel that those of us working in the public sector, well, we were protected, you know? So to do this so soon after COVID, I am uneasy about that. Having said that, I do recognise that there is a conversation around pay that always needs to happen every few years with regard to teachers. We do, as a society, need to recognise how much do we value our teachers and how much should we be paying them. So I'm not against the idea of raising the pay for teachers. I'm just not sure right now is the right time to be striking.
No, let me show you something that I saw earlier today, because there's been a lot of, I would call it propaganda-like information from the National Education Union involving kids. And this was on a picket line in London today.
United will never be defeated. United will never be defeated.
And that is the National Education Union tweet that I mentioned, which featured this young schoolgirl holding a placard with the message, "My teacher is worth more." Now, you know what I think, but do you think it's ethical to use children in this way?
No, I don't think we should be using children in that way. When adults have arguments, you do it behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And the children shouldn't be involved. So, no, I don't think that's right. And especially those ones, they're so young. They don't understand the issues. And I don't think that's right. And I hope that that's all that there is. There's only a few of them, I don't know. But what's important is that they come to the table and they have a discussion. And I'm not sure how those discussions are going with government in terms of the pay rise.
The thing is, the reason it worries me, look, we've had so many conversations, haven't we, over the past few years about what is a woke indoctrination of our education system in lots of different ways, whether it be critical race theory or trigger warnings on particular classic books. And this is something that you have very boldly and I think correctly stood up against. But I think this is part of it, because if we just teach our kids in schools that they should be supporting education unions, actually they're not getting a well-rounded picture of where we stand politically.
I agree. No, 100%. You're correct. I mean, whenever we've had mock elections and things, we give them the whole gamut. We tell them what the Conservatives' policies are and the Labour's policies are and Green Party and so on. And then we let the kids vote as they feel fit. And it's important to allow them to hear a variety of views. And so I can see why you would describe that as indoctrination, because they're not able to see the other side.
Because they love their teachers. And of course they love their teachers, because that's what you want kids to feel at that age.
Yes.
And I just think it fits into this wider picture that schools and what our kids are taught is increasingly part of a left-wing orthodoxy, where it is almost accepted that strike action is a good thing. Unions are a good thing. Now, look, you might think that, but
Yes.
it's not a fact. And if
Yes.
you are being taught that, I think it's wrong because
Yes.
you should get both
Well,
sides.
I think it taps into this general idea about what is education about. And I think too often some of us in teaching think that it's about teaching children to overthrow the establishment and to stand up for what they believe is right, as opposed to teaching them maths and English and science and giving them a whole load of knowledge and skills so that they can go off into the world and decide what they want to do. I always feel that our children, some of them might become radicals and some of them will become dentists, and that's just fine.
It is. Some of them might even become Conservative Party politicians. And you know what? That's OK as well. But look, I think there has been a change because I think back to when I was at school and my teachers were very respectful on the whole about keeping politics out of the classroom.
Yes.
But there
That's
has
changed.
been a change.
Yeah, yeah,
and
I agree.
think it's important that we speak up against
Yes, no, I agree.
fascinating insight. I wanted to speak to you today, Britain's strictest head teacher, on what I think has been a bad day for education in this country. Kathy
Thanks for having
Ferguson,
me.
Thank you. Now, coming up in Uncancelled, with Nicola Sturgeon crumbling under a self-made political mess, has trans extremism finally finished off the First Minister? Well, Jim Davidson, one of the country's biggest entertainers, tells me why he thinks her days could be unnumbered. Jim, uncancelled at 10:40. The next in the media buzz is Australia's foreign minister and the wokest politician down under wrong to patronise the UK on its colonial past in a controversial major speech during her visit to London. My superstar panel return to debate that straight after the break.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank. My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions. I have no time for cultural totalitarianism. We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every weekend, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Bigger and better, starting at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday.
Can't be too safe. Bring it on. Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous.
Just get on with it.
Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Let's return to tomorrow's news tonight now in our media buzz. Lots of front pages in Daily Express on this absolutely horrifying story that's captivating the nation. Reports that the parents of missing mum of two, Nicola Bailey, fear somebody has her. As an intensive search approaches its 6th day, they vowed to never stop looking for their daughter, and I pray that Nicola is out there and is okay. The Daily Mirror is demanding action after the tragic death of 4-year-old Alice Stones. Now, Alice, in another horrific story, was attacked by a killer dog less than 2 weeks after 28-year-old Natasha Johnston was mauled by several dogs while on a walk, with the paper asking, when will someone care enough to act? And the terrible thing, I think, in this case is that it was the family pet. So shocking. The Devils moved to Suffolk. Daily Star splashes with the story that 70 people living around a sleepy market town on the East Coast now identify as Satanists. The Daily Telegraph leads with the headline that the RAF's diversity drive discriminated against 160 white men in its efforts to meet an aspirational diversity target. The Daily Mail leads with an exclusive that Rishi Sunak is ready to ban unions from leaving parents in limbo, with ministers urgently examining new legislation to force teachers to tell schools whether they plan to go on strike to avoid disruption. I couldn't agree more with that. My superstar panel return now. Former editor, current columnist at the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, the businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster Ashley James. Now, Australia's wokest politician, the Foreign Minister Penny Wong, has used her first official visit to the UK to deliver a Britain-hating lecture at King's College in London. So here she is speaking about colonialism.
My father is descended from Hakka and Cantonese Chinese. Many from these clans laboured in the British North Borneo Company, in tin mines and plantations for tobacco and timber. Many worked as domestic servants for British colonists, as did my own grandmother. Sometimes such stories can feel uncomfortable for those whose stories they are and for those who hear them. But understanding the past enables us to better share the present and the future. It gives us the opportunity to find more common ground than if we stay sheltered in narrower versions of our country's histories.
She also boasted about visiting 24 Indo-Pacific countries in her first 6 months in office, and without a hint of irony claimed that her governing Australian Labor Party was taking an approach that puts listening above lecturing. Now, Defence Minister Richard Marles then defended his colleague's woke diplomacy, saying that dredging up grievances of the past is necessary to engage with the countries of our region, or in other words, that Britain needs to grovel to be listened to in Asian countries. Goodness knows what our poor Foreign Secretary James Cleverly had to listen to on his walkabout with Wong. So she came here to try and do down Britain. In my view, she can rack off back to Australia. Because Dawn Neeson, this actually infuriates me. It's not good diplomacy. This is a woke ideology, as Elon Musk would call it, a woke mind virus, which has ripped through the Australian government since Scott Morrison was deposed. And I just think we should say, go to hell, Wong.
I don't know what she wants us to do exactly. I mean, it was like, I'm aware that, you know, slavery was wrong and colonialisation was wrong. I've been aware of that since I learnt it in school. So what does she want me to do now? You know,
they want the
own
UK,
it?
They want us to feel constantly ashamed, for us to be on our knees, for us to be apologising to the world.
I know I'm old, but I wasn't around.
I know.
I mean, seriously.
Nearly.
Oi. Who about your case? But I mean, it's like the fact she goes on about, oh, my own grandmother was in, you know, a domestic servant. Well, what about the working classes in this country? My mum was a domestic servant, cleaning houses for posh folk like her grandmother was. Does my mum get reparations and apologies as well? Actually, maybe that's not a bad idea, and then she can split it with me. But I just don't know what she wants any of us to do. I mean, we can't afford money. We haven't got any money to give. We can't afford to pay our teachers and our nurses and anyone else at the moment. So what
Adam
are
Brooks,
we meant to do?
I have to say, I am absolutely sick of this. I know a lot about Australia. A lot of people think I'm from there. I've got lots of family there, but I'm born in New Zealand. But Australia, I'm sorry, they come over here to lecture us.
Yeah.
Think of the way that Australia was treating its Aboriginal, Indigenous people up until the 1950s, the 1960s, the 1970s. Rack off, Penny Wong, before you lecture us. Go and sort out the crap in your own country.
Adam's got a really good line.
No, I'm not dropping that one. I've been told I can't. She needs a nice...
Not censored on this show.
She needs a nice cold can of Foster's and to chill out, to be fair. Look, Penny Wong is wrong at the end of the day.
That was fine. He's proud. He was proud of that.
Let's be serious here. History, there's good and bad in all countries.
And a lot of it in Australia.
And look...
A lot of bad in Australia.
The good and bad history has shaped us to where we are now. We learn lessons from the past. If it's not colonialism, it's statues, it's books. These people have got to grow up and shut up.
Yeah, indeed, because actually I am sick. I am sick of people coming over here and trying to tell us how bad the UK is. I'm sorry, look at everything we gave to the world thanks to the Industrial Revolution, but we're meant to feel ashamed about that too now because of climate change. And the thing is, Penny Wong is a woke politician. She should have come here. She should have been polite about what is a very important ally, and instead she's tried to drag us down. And I'm just fed up. I'm fed up of us meaning to feel guilty because of our brilliant history.
You like her though, don't you?
Don't say that. I'm actually... do you know what? I actually agree with a lot of what both of you have said, which I won't say very often. But yeah, you know, we were saying earlier, like, we are all from working class backgrounds, so none of us or our ancestors benefited from colonialism. But, you know, I think it's really important to know the history and to understand that a lot of it was wrong, but what would we...
what she's saying is loaded, isn't it? She's not just talking about learning. It's a loaded sort of speech, which is that we're not doing enough.
And this idea that we need to pay reparations, I'm sure everyone, no matter what, you know, ethnic background they are from in this country, would like to make sure that they are paid a fair wage and everything else. So I feel like we cannot be responsible for things that happened however many hundreds of years.
You know what? I would like to see Penny, whose dad is Chinese, go to China and make that speech.
Oh, yeah, and she never would.
No, funny enough, she wouldn't, would she?
She never would.
No.
And do you know what, Dawn? Oh, my goodness. You just took the words out of my mouth because it's exactly the same thing as Jacinda Ardern, the woke leader of New Zealand, who, thank God, is no longer a post, who claimed to be this be kind humanitarian, but was cozying up to the Chinese regime. And Australia, in the last government, actually, they were brave. Scott Morrison stood up against Chinese, not this new current government, because it's much, much easier, isn't it, to come to a country like the UK. We've got a very woke mainstream media. She's going to get a great hearing over here. But actually, I think Penny Wong has made me absolutely furious today. I thought it was rude. I thought it was unstateswoman-like. And I don't want to hear anything from
Wong.
He said it.
Now, it's every presenter's worst nightmare, a guest with a ringing phone. Never happened on the show, actually, but last night on the British Bashing Corporation's flagship political programme Newsnight. Have you ever watched that? No, me neither. Host Victoria Derbyshire's interview with Lord Baker was disrupted by his telephone ringing not once, not twice, but 4 times. The Tory politician handed his mobile to Derbyshire to deal with, but she was just as hapless turning it off. This is hilarious. Look.
My advice to him is not to listen to my telephone, never mind. My advice to him... Would you turn it off?
I will, don't worry. I'll put it on silent.
You're in demand.
You really are.
He's in demand. Yeah. I pay all that through my PAYE. And so...
So give me your phone.
The Prime Minister's very insistent, isn't he?
Well, can I ask you finally... No, please let me ask you a question.
Within a week.
On for 2 months.
And I think it was trying to get through to me, isn't he?
Someone is telling you to shush.
It's rather like Mr. Sharp in the BBC. He will never be able to shake over the fact that he tried to arrange a financial deal to help the Prime Minister.
Dawn, put your phone away. Put your phone away. You're not playing that trick on me, Dawn Neeson, Adam Brooks, Ashley Jones. Now, coming up, will the Princess of Wales be adorned with a new crown? What has she done to deserve that? Find out as we reveal our Greatest Britain and Union Jackass at 10:50. But next, in Uncancelled, with Nicola Sturgeon stuck in a self-made political meltdown, has trans extremism finally finished off the First Minister? One of the country's best entertainers, but also, these days, One of the best social commentators, Jim Davidson, reveals why her days could be numbered. He's uncancelled and live straight after the break. We're back in 2 minutes.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank. My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, Nicola Sturgeon could resign before the next general election after the visceral backlash to her sick gender reform bill. That's according to an insider. So David Griffiths, former Holyrood candidate for the Alliance for Unity Party, told the Scottish Express that sources close to the SNP leadership believe the First Minister's days are numbered. He said, "Let's just say I'm acquainted with someone who is close to some of the SNP hierarchy, and they've said they are hearing that she might have decided she's had enough." Things have been going downhill for Sturgeon since this car crash interview about the Scottish trans prison row on Monday.
The question is, are all trans women women? You haven't answered that question.
Well, that's not the point that we're dealing with
That's
here.
the question I'm asking.
Trans women are women, but in the prison context, there is no automatic right for a trans
So
woman.
there are contexts where a trans woman is not a woman.
No, there is. Look, we're talking here about trans women.
And I'm now asking about women born as women.
I don't think there are circumstances there.
SNP MP for Angus, Dave Dugan, mirrored the flustered First Minister when he was quizzed about the trans double rapist Adam Graham on BBC Radio 5 Live today.
Great answer, Dave. Is Isla Bryson a woman?
Yes.
Right. Well, why is a woman being sent to a male prison?
She's been moved to a male prison following a quite understandable level of interest and concern.
Right.
Sexual
She would
offender,
be in a woman's
you will
prison
be
according
subject
to your
the
logic
same
because she's
risk
a woman.
assessments as any other violent sexual offender. All of these people have legitimate concerns as they would see them, and this has been whipped up into a media frenzy for political gain.
This is a violent rape. This is a violent rapist, and she's a woman, and she's been sent to a men's prison.
Jim Davidson, I mean, look, this is so serious, isn't it, Jim? But it's also, it's farcical. Surely this is it for the SNP and Sturgeon now. There's no coming back from this, is there, Jim?
Well, you know, my family from Scotland. I was the one that was born down here, and I love the Scottish people. I spent a lot of time up there, and I just can't help thinking that they're all chomping at the bit to get rid of that woman now. Not because of her views, just because she's not very good. All of her views are a bit daft. Yet suddenly she's saying this trans person is a woman, We're going to send her to a woman's prison, still with all the brooch and earrings. And then, oh, no, there's such an outcry. Oh, you might be right there. Let's send a woman to a man's prison. So what is it all about? And the thing is, and listen, I don't have a great opinion about trans people. I can understand a man being a woman. I mean, no good working all your life. But I think...
Naughty.
I was just throwing a little joke in there for you, just to cheer up all the lefties watching, of which there's not many. But you know, people can't explain. The people that are around me, the women I know, the grown-up ones that are not statue pullers, that they're all saying you can't be a woman just by putting a frock on. There's more to it. And it's insulting to women to have someone who's a bloke who's got the tackle, who could dish out the good news to whoever he wants, and to say, right, I'm a woman. And all the women I know are really fed up with that now. And she should know better. She's making a political point. Do you know what? I'm sure she's done this just to get the British government to bite, so she can say, oh, you see what they're doing now? They're trying to tell us what to do. Let's get doing the A1. Quick, hand-dubby dozy. Mental.
Keep going. I just want to watch that all night, Jim.
No, I've run out.
Oh, brilliant. That was brilliant. Now, look, Jim, it's amazing you're here today because, you know, it's Work Shy Wednesday, isn't it? More than 200,000 teachers walked out on their students. Yeah. But apparently teachers aren't actually as hard up as they want to think, Jim. This OECD analysis has found that in England, they're actually among the highest paid for the fewest hours in Europe and the developed world. So it feels a bit like this is part of a campaign, Jim, can we say, to get the Tories out?
And look at the state of them, and with them things there. I mean, they're supposed to set an example. Do anyone wear leather shoes anymore? We used to wear the teachers' shoes squeaking down the corridor. We'd all run and put our fags out the window and things like that. And, you know, to be honest with you, when we were kids, I didn't go to school much anyway. It didn't bother me. If there was a strike, we'd have had a street party. We'd have loved it. Look at the state of this lot. It looks like Jeremy Carl's green room. Ridiculous. And they get paid a fortune, and let them go on strike. And take the border force people with you. It won't make any difference. They don't do anything anyway. And the firemen, what do they do? How many fires? Have you ever seen a fire? Never seen a fire. I know it's a really, really risky job, and the firemen do a fantastic job. But teachers, look, they're just going to teach your kids to be left there and how to pull down statues. And how to be a 7-year-old boy and thinking, actually, I want to be a girl. Oh, that's all right. Go to the top of the class. Ridiculous. Get rid of the lot.
And we certainly didn't notice the 100,000 civil servants who didn't show up to work today, Jim, because they haven't shown up for the past 3 years.
Listen, striking don't bother me. It doesn't bother me at all. Petrol stations going on strike. I'm always banned from driving. I don't need petrol. As long as Waitrose and the Carlton Club don't go on strike, I'm fine.
Now, Jim, the pop star, Sam Smith. You know, Sam Smith sparked outrage this week with a raunchy music video. Oh, good boy. Good boy. You're getting it right so far. You don't know them.
What, by saying them?
Yeah, good boy. You've got it right.
I dislike them both. I mean, it's great, isn't it? I mean, he looks like two people. He looks like he swallowed the other half of himself. I mean, or herself, or their self. It's ridiculous. You know, this takes you back. I've seen this before. I think in the 70s when I took an acid tab and I looked round and see all these maniacs doing daft things. This is not new. And to be honest with you, if he sees himself, someone's going to say, oi, Sam, you look a complete Burke.
Well, look, I'm not going to force you to apologise, Jim, for calling Sam Smith a he. But look at what happened on Woke Central TV.
No matter what he says, he's biologically a male.
No, that's true. I know. But look at what happened, Jim, because, you know, you just said what Richard Madeley said, but look at what he had to do.
A shot of him, Sam.
Sam Smith uses the pronouns they.
They, yes, sorry.
You know,
and Susanna made him apologise, Jim.
Well, he ought to grow a pair as well, talking about being trans. He ought to get a backbone, that bloke. Never liked him. Never liked him. He's never liked me, so it don't matter.
Who? Richard?
Richard Madeley, yeah.
Oh, why? So you two have beef?
Oh, yeah, years ago. Yeah, he's sort of all precious, isn't it? And he came up to me and said, Jim, it's about time we buried the hatchet. And I said, yeah, in your head. He didn't like that. He didn't laugh, man. I don't like him, never have.
But what caused it? Sorry, I'm fascinated by this. What caused your feud with Richard Madeley? That seems like such a weird celebrity feud.
How could you not have a feud with him? He's got a backbone made of overcooked spaghetti, and he sits there listening to all them women with them menstruating problems, and get a backbone, mate, and go out with the blokes and have a pint. What's the matter with you? What's happened to the world? He's probably a them as well. He's in the mixed race toilets at the moment.
Jim Davidson. Oh, I just await the response from Richard Madeley. That will be good fun.
I don't care. I don't watch him. He's not coming on Ustream either. That's it. I'm cancelling it.
I know, but of course we can watch Jim on Ustream. Jim, where do we find it?
Well, funny enough, we've got a brand new platform today, and within the next, you can get it online. But in the next 2 weeks, we will be on a smart app on television right next to Netflix. Don't you worry about that. We still won't be as good as GB News because they've got Dan Wootton.
I'm glad that you added that in, Jim. But no, I'm a huge fan with everything you do on Ustream. It's an absolutely brilliant service. And, Jim, we will speak very soon. Thank you so much.
Love you, Dan.
Thanks, Jim. But it's time now to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union jackass. Gosh, Richard Madeley versus Jim Davidson. Never saw that one coming. Dawn Neeson, who's your greatest Britain nominee?
Well, it might be Jim Davidson after that. It's not, though. It is Sarah Lancashire as Sergeant Catherine Kaywood in Happy Valley. Final episode coming up this Sunday. Can't wait. It's brilliant. She's a brilliant actress. Can't believe she used to be Raquel in Coronation Street. What a change.
Never seen an episode. Never seen an episode. Looks too dark for me, but I know everyone says it's brilliant. It's fantastic. Adam Brooks,
mine is GB News' very own Lee Anderson.
MP, he was here earlier.
Yeah, MP Conservatives. On Monday, I was on the parliamentary estate for another reason, and Lee come and found me and literally gave me a tour of the whole of Parliament, introduced me to dozens of government ministers and MPs, bought me a drink and literally treated me like a mate. And he didn't need to do that, so he's a good bloke and a genuine guy. Thank you.
Ashley, your nominee for GB?
Mine is Kate Middleton for her brilliant Shaping Us campaign, which highlights the importance of early years education. So I really hope that this gives a message to both political parties, the importance of childcare.
Do you know what? I'm going to go with Ashley James.
Wow.
Greatest Britain, because I think that Kate is... Ashley won't like the reason why, though, but because Kate is showing Meghan how it's actually done. This is how you actually drive change and be a real humanitarian. Dawn Neeson, your Union Jackass nominee.
Matt Hancock. I mean, I could do Matt Hancock every week for his car crash performance.
Oh, it was terrible, Dawn.
Good Morning Britain this week. Dreadful. The man's an idiot.
I mean, he did win, I think, yesterday or the day before, so he probably can't win again, but I'm so with you. Adam Brooks, your nominee?
Mine is Sadiq Khan, the London Mayor, for the ULEZ expansion. Even though we know the process was manipulated, even though that we know that Londoners do not want this, even though we know that businesses will fail, the poor will be impacted, he's doubling down. It needs to be scrapped, and the government need to somehow get rid of Sadiq Khan.
Yeah, well, they can't, but I hear you. Ashley James, your nominee?
Mine is Gillian Keegan, who was not only flaunting her 10 grand Rolex watch this morning, but is obviously on an MP salary, subsidised food, drink, free travel, free energy and everything else, telling nursing teachers to be realistic about their pay.
Oh, how terrible that someone who's worked hard for their money dares to spend it on something nice.
It might have been a turkey special.
How terrible.
Just like people in the public sector.
Union Jackass. Sadiq Khan.
Yeah.
Of course it is. London's failed mayor and... Oh, you, Liz, don't
get rid of him.
Started on that. Adam Brooks, Ashley James and Dawn Neeson, my fabulous superstar panel, thank you so much for your brilliant contributions tonight. I am back tomorrow from 9 p.m, though. I hope you'll join me. Next up, it's Headliners. Good night.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back. Eamon Holmes, back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can